For more than 2 decades, we've been educating our listeners about financial topics that are most important to you. Do you have enough money to retire? How will you keep from running out of money? What's your plan for managing market risk? What about taxes, inflation, and healthcare? Each week, we talk with an advisor at Lucia Capital Group about these issues and more. This is Managing Your Financial Future. That's right, we're managing your financial future. Welcome back to the program. Johnny Dean, your podcast host. Always happy to bring back Professor Rick Plum, certified financial planner professional and accredited wealth management advisor.
Wow, you did that without your cheat sheet.
I did. Where is my cheat sheet? Wait a minute here. Here
Well,
it
it
is.
doesn't matter because you're done.
Did I get it right? I got it right. I nailed it. Yeah. We're going to milk this.
After 6 months?
Well, we're going to milk this joke forever. People are, and just till the end of this season.
People are tired of it already.
Yeah, they probably are. So look at this
But
here.
there really is a cheat sheet that somebody sent him.
No, there is. This guy got it right here. It not only was it sent to me by Joe, it was laminated.
That's awesome.
Laminated and on both sides. In case, I drop it on the floor and it lands, face down, I've still got the cheat sheet on both sides. Tell you, I appreciate listeners very much, especially creative listeners. It's wonderful. All right, so today I want to go over some. I haven't even presented any of this to you, Professor Plum.
Okay, what do we got going on?
Well, I want to talk about 6 lessons about money that I've run across.
Oh, great!
And these are lessons that I really.
Did you get this off the internet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I knew where I was looking. I had an idea about what we could talk about. And I just happened to agree with probably all of these. I'm going to get your
take on
these
the Warren Buffett's 6 lessons?
No, they're not Warren Buffett's. He's probably got many. This is more about...
Mostly is live within your means.
Well, yeah, his was investing. And, it's easy for a guy like Warren Buffett to say this stuff. It's
Well, but one of the things he consistently says is live within your means.
Oh, no question. In fact, that's one of them. Let's get right to these. I'm gonna just throw these out at you. 6 lessons about money that I think are very important, and I do happen to agree with these. Here's one that we've talked about, and this is starting to really take off. This idea.
Marry rich. No, not one of the.
I used to know a woman named Mary Rich. No joke. No joke. Like 40 years ago. I mean, she had to have just absolutely. I don't know if that was her married name or not. All right, getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. The lesson is there are dozens and dozens of ways to get wealthy, but there's only one way to stay wealthy, and that is some combination of being frugal, like you said, living within your means, and paranoia, and using the element of time to your advantage wherever you can.
Right, and protecting yourself against it where, this is where we get back into that volatility is not risk.
Yes.
Unless you allow it to be risky by using it the wrong way. And so understand and staying wealthy, getting wealthy, there are hundreds, and I don't know how many books written on how to get rich quick, how to make money, how to get wealthy, there's lots of different books on it.
You could put risk out there. You get wealthy at Las Vegas. You could build a company. You can do everything the right way. You can inherit money. You can win the lottery.
But how do you stay wealthy, or how do you keep what you've made?
Every one of those ways. Be a professional athlete and sign a multi-million-dollar contract.
Yeah.
We've seen them lose their money as well.
Oh, quite often. I mean, and the lottery. How many people? The statistics on lottery winning. Obviously they get a lot of money, but they can't keep it.
Yeah.
So how do you keep it? It's somewhat there's some humility in there too. Thinking that this can be taken away from me. I need to protect this. I need to make sure that this is set up in a way that keeps it from being taken away from me.
Well, exactly. Now, people look at financial planning, they go to financial advisors like you. A lot of people think it's about helping them to sort of build their wealth, and that can be a part of it. But, what's more important is keeping the wealth. You've got to look at things like making sure that they're in alignment with all their risk, right? And tax planning opportunities and all that stuff.
With financial planning, I think, started out of the risk management side of taking care of things. And then obviously taxes are a drain to a portfolio. It's a risk to the portfolio. So yes, understanding the risks that you're running into, that you may run into, or you may not, but understanding how to protect against those things to keep yourself. I've said it many times, our job isn't necessarily, especially we deal mostly with retirees. And by the time people come in and see us, they have some form of wealth, whether it's, $200,000 or $20 million. They've created to them at least the start of their wealth.
Sure.
Our job isn't necessarily to make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. Our job is to keep you from being poor.
Well,
from losing
that's
what you've got.
Using those skills to keep people from losing that wealth that they've built. Mm-hmm. It can be easy or difficult to build wealth, but I honestly think keeping
it's much more difficult to keep it.
Right. And I've been asked before, and I'm sure you have, well, what's more important, building the wealth or keeping it? Well, first of all, you can't keep it until you've built it.
Right.
But the easier part comparatively.
Is it like two sides of the same coin? We have to have both sides?
You really do. Yeah, exactly. So it's being paranoid that you could lose it. You mentioned living within your means.
Right.
It's been said that wealth is the difference between, what you pay out and what you keep. That difference is wealth. So if you live well below your means, it doesn't take a lot of income either, by the way. There are people with very high incomes who aren't wealthy because they spend it all.
I know people who have very modest income compared to others who are happy, get everything they want. They do things, they have great time. They always have the ability to do what they want to do when they want to do it.
Yes.
And I know people who, have 40, 50, 60,000 a month income and are broke. They can't get two nickels to rub together, it seems like.
That's 100%. That's 100% correct. If you spend less than you take in, you can build significant wealth, even if you don't have a lot of income. It's just that ratio. So now, okay, so you mentioned...
The trick is trying to find a way, I'll take this one other. People talk about financial planning being only for wealthy people, rich. I said, no, rich people have $1 to put towards this need, $1 to put towards that need, $1 to put this need, and another $1 to put in their pocket for a future need they don't even know about. The rest of us have $1 that we've got to somehow stretch over all of those needs. So we have to be more efficient in some respects to how we handle money. We have to be almost better because we don't have that never-ending supply of dollars coming in. We have a set finite amount that we want to be able to cover the needs that we have.
All right. So staying wealthy is the first lesson is keeping your wealth is different from building your wealth.
Yes, they're different strategies.
Different skills.
Yeah, they're completely different strategies to maintain wealth compared to creating it.
Now, you said a moment ago, as we get into the second lesson here, that was the first lesson. You said a moment ago that it's not about just building and building and building wealth and trying to hit home runs and all that kind of stuff, because you're probably going to strike out at some point. So the second lesson is know when enough is enough. Now, the reason I bring this up, and you said getting wealthy, this is what I read, that, Bernie Madoff, right, the famous fraudster, from 15 whatever years ago. What a lot of people don't know is that before he conned him out of whatever it was, $60 billion, I don't know what it was. Before he did that, Madoff's business was actually making, according to this, $25 to $50 million a year in profit. So
real profit.
Yes, and he wasn't committing these crimes because he had nothing. He just didn't have enough, apparently. I'm not speaking for him, but it sure seemed that way. And Professor Plum, it's this whole greed factor. Understanding what is enough.
Greed is not good.
No, it isn't. And I think, and you can tell me if you agree, having an idea of how much is enough for you can help people answer the question, well, can I retire right now? Or can I give enough to charity? Would you agree that somebody who has a concept of, I have enough money, this is what I need, has a better handle on things, or would you not agree?
Well, and sometimes you need that reality check. I remember years ago, I was dealing with somebody who had come into, unfortunately, because of a death, quite a bit of money, and they were set up very well for the rest of their life. They were not that old. They were still, had many years left. And they were talking about, wow, I got all this money. I want to set up a foundation. They were very education oriented. I want to set a foundation up for this, to be able to help kids do this. I said, you're doing really well. You're not doing that well yet that you can take the amount of money you just talked about to set up a foundation with that no longer supports you in your life.
Yeah.
You need X amount of dollars from what you've said per year, and so that means you need this. And so they had to have this little bit of a reality check because they got this large windfall. And it seems when you're used to dealing with X and all of a sudden you've got 100X or some other, wow, this will never end.
Yeah.
And so I can be really philanthropic. I can be, whatever. In this case, they wanted a lot. It wasn't for themselves so much. It was they wanted to do a lot of good.
Well, but
they just weren't there yet.
There's a corollary there, which is know how much is enough, so you don't have to keep pursuing it, but also know what you need to get to where you need to go
without shortchanging yourself.
You may not have enough.
I said, if you want to do that, you're going to have to cut your lifestyle back to this level here, and that was not something that was going to happen.
Yeah, there was a thing called lifestyle creep, though. For people who say, well, if I just had $1 million, I can retire, and then they reach that million, and they say, well, sure,
doesn't go as far as I thought it would.
I've got these, this country club membership now, and these 3 cars, and the bigger house. So I think part of financial planning is helping people to understand where that level is. So those are 2 so far. Staying wealthy, keeping the wealth that you have, and knowing how much is enough. The other one, and you could tell me whether you agree with this or not, you probably do, is that money doesn't buy happiness. And I would add that...
But it buys a lot of distraction to being miserable.
Well, it does. But here's the thing. If you're not a happy person to begin with,
money's not going to solve that.
Money's probably not going to solve that.
In fact, it may make it worse.
But it may. But what money can do is give you freedom. It can give you options.
Yes.
With every dollar you save, I've heard a good saying, every dollar you save is you're purchasing an option on your future, which is that I'll be able to have some freedom. It's not necessarily about stopping working and retiring. It's about having the choice to do it. Would you agree?
I agree. And, financially, a lot of times, for some reason, the last couple of months, we've been talking to people about retirement and other things, but it's not really about retirement. We're changing it to financial independence. It's not about when can I quit? Now, some people, it's about when can I quit? When can I get the heck out of this job? I hate this place or whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
Other people, it's like, when do I have that option? When can I be financial independence so maybe I could cut back a little bit? I like what I do. I just don't want to do it 60, 70 hours a week. Maybe I only want to do it 30 or 20. And when can I have options so I don't have to do what I'm doing right now? I can choose to do it. Years ago, I worked with a large organization that they had a pension in place, and it was so you had to every year they worked, their pension got a little bit larger. It's closer to and they just wanted to know in many cases when they could have a bad day at work and basically tell the boss what to do with it.
Yeah.
Sing an old country song to them. And so through their saving and their pension, we'd have a review and say, you know what, you've met your date. If you want it, based on what you've said, you have a combination of assets and income available to you. You can retire. Most everybody I met with that met that date did not retire.
Yeah.
They continued working, but their attitude at work was very different. They're no longer working for the man.
No, they're working because they want to.
They're there because they wanted to be there, and they know that they have the option of saying, I'm done. I'm out of here. If I don't want to be here, I'm not going to be here.
Well, it's such a psychological boost. And that's why I say it doesn't buy happiness, but money buys freedom. And freedom,
it buys options, yeah.
And freedom and options can give you happiness, contentment, if I think you're already somewhat happy to
it can reduce your stress level.
Absolutely.
And that has a lot of, can create a lot of unhappiness in many different areas. So, yes, I understand it. No, it does not buy happiness, but it gives you, maybe it's your job that's making you unhappy.
Yeah, could be.
And so if you have options, maybe you can find a different job. This happened years ago to people, some relatives of mine. They were working and they were making really good money.
Yeah.
And they finally got to a point where they had enough money that they didn't have time for anything. They were working on the weekends. They were working, until 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night every night.
Yeah.
The stress was killing them.
Well, and to have that.
And then they stepped back.
Yeah.
And they weren't making as much money, but they didn't need to because they were able to save while they were making the big money because they didn't have time to do anything else.
Well,
they just felt better.
And that's it. It's when you have the option, you can stay if you want, but you don't have to. You can go off and do what you want. What was it? I may have said this on this podcast. I'm hearing all these wonderful things. and one of them was that spending the night in a cold tent can be a wonderful adventure when you're on vacation, but when you're homeless, doing the same thing is miserable. In other words, the person who doesn't have the option of being anywhere else. You see,
I've never heard you say that one before.
Okay, well, I don't remember, but anyway, it occurred to me that's true. You know, somebody who's stuck in a job and can't get out because they need the money can be miserable, but somebody who all of a sudden has the option of getting out, has the choice of staying or not, hey, like you said, they may want to stay. So money can buy freedom. That's the third lesson that I think.
I agree.
It's not about happiness. It's about options and freedom. The fourth lesson, I think, to take away, and this seems really obvious, Professor, is you need to save money. I mean, this whole discussion was true.
Unless you're a trust baby, yes.
True. But then again, you're back to the one where keeping your money versus losing your money. So, but you're right. But for most people, let's say, you need to save it. You need to save some money.
You have to. It's just a fact of life. While you're working, you need to save some money for the rainy day, whether it is a short-term rainy day, the car broke down, or it is a long-term retirement that we need the cash flow from. Nobody else is going to help you.
Well, and that's right. And something else as I was researching this, and I loved this quote. This person, whoever it was, and I apologize, I don't have the source. They said, building wealth has little to do with your income or investment returns and lots to do with your savings rate.
Well, you can't, it doesn't matter. You could have 100% investment return. If you've got nothing in it, you didn't earn anything.
That's right. Well, wealth is the accumulation of whatever is left over after you spend what you take in. That's your wealth.
Well, that's why I've said the hardest part about creating wealth isn't picking the right investment, isn't picking the right opportunity.
No. Yeah.
It's having the money to use that opportunity, to use that investment.
Yes.
Because if you don't, pry the wallet out of your pocket, somehow you could be the best picker, mutual fund picker, you could have the best timing on everything, but if you don't have any money to put into it, it ain't going to help you at all.
I should say saving money early. Maybe I should add that. We've talked about
save early, save often.
Well, I think you brought this up years ago, where you had this study that said the person who saved between age 20 and 30 and stopped.
Well, yeah, that's an old one. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've talked about it a long time. But I think you were the first one that I heard.
Okay,
you
30 or 40 years ago.
Yes, the person who saved between age 20 and 30 every year and then stopped, just saved for 10 years and let it grow over the next 30 years, right? It was a 40-year time period,
right?
Versus somebody who didn't save between age 20 and 30 and started at age 30 and saved all the way through age 60 for 30 years.
The first person still had more, depending upon the rate of return.
Correct.
But
you
assuming identical rates of return. Yeah. Starting early, and that's why when it comes to saving, a lot of younger people, they want to do the 529s, and they have younger kids, and they're thinking, okay, what's the biggest expense that we're going to hit first after buying the house, if they can do that?
Yeah,
is education. That's going to hit first before retirement. So let's get education out of the way before we get retirement started. And I think that's backwards. I think you need to start your retirement because as you build up the discipline of saving, build up the discipline of doing your Roth IRA, build up the discipline, you get all this money working for you in those first 18 years before the kid goes to school.
Yeah.
And you work on pushing that savings rate up to a point where, maybe you're saving $20,000, $30,000 a year. And then when the kid goes to school, you can either use some of the money in your Roth or some of these other things if you have to, try to get some, help, grants and other things, or you leave the retirement money you've already built up working for you,
and you now
savings. Take your not your savings, you take your ongoing monthly,
the money you're saving,
the ongoing savings, and spend it on education for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But you've already built up a nest egg that's working for you for retirement.
That's a point that we've brought up often over the years, and it's one we haven't talked about that much. And it's really good. You just reminded me of that, which was when people say, well, I've got X amount to save, and my kid is, 6 months old. I want to start right. I want to put a college savings plan. And you would say, well, are you saving for yourself first? Are you saving in your 401k? Are you doing your own retirement?
Are you getting the matching contribution? I would rather use a Roth IRA than the 529. Now, I'm not poo-pooing Roth or 529s. I like 529s, especially if you can get grandma and grandpa to contribute to it.
Well, that's even better.
Because I doubt they'll contribute to your Roth, but they will contribute to the grandkids' accounts for their education. So,
because those grandkids are so cute.
So you do your Roth, you build up stuff for you, and you open the 529 and allow other people to contribute to it.
Isn't that nice? Plus, if you ever need a student loan or go through that it's in the grandparents.
Well, plus, once it's 15 years old now, once the kid gets through college or starts working, they can use the money in the 529 that's not being used, at least up to $35,000 as Roth funding material.
Yes.
That's pretty cool, I think.
And that's relatively new.
Yeah, 2-3 years old.
All right, so we've done four of these lessons for money. The first one was know that keeping wealth is different from building wealth. Know when enough is enough. That's number 2. Money can't buy happiness is number 3. It can buy freedom. It can buy you options, which is more important. And number 4 is you got to at least save something, assuming you're not a trust fund.
You got to meet us halfway. You got to save.
Yeah, you got to save for something. All right. So the fifth one that I saw, and here's another one, and this is critical to something that we use for the bucket strategy, Professor Plum, is that you need room for error. You can have a financial plan, but if your financial plan has got to work 100% of the time, it cannot falter, and things have to go right 100% of the time, which they never do, it's probably going to, the plan is probably, work. The plan is going to fail. What do you think about, we talk about adjust for room for error in a bucket strategy all the time.
There's lots of places that can change. The investment return may not be exactly what you want when you want it. Your spending may change. Unfortunately, we see things happen outside of anybody's control that changes the whole dynamics of the plan. And so we have to rebuild, reset, redo. Life changes. Everything changes. Plans have to be able to adapt and be adjusted. They can't be so set that they can't change.
You think that or you think of what are all the things that can happen to me between now and retirement? Or once you're retired, what are the things that can happen to me between now and the next 30 years? And would you agree, Professor, that the bad things that happen to people are virtually never foreseen? It's going to be something you didn't expect. You knew something was coming. You just couldn't identify what it was.
You didn't even know something was coming, and it happened. Unfortunately, I've seen people that got to their retirement, had it way under control. They had everything set. They were well within their living, the needs and their income. And unfortunately, this was a couple of years, they had a child pass away.
Yeah.
The child and their spouse in a car accident.
Oh, man. Well, see?
And now they're the caregivers for a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
That changes retirement dramatically.
And you probably didn't.
And it wasn't something that was
coming.
ever considered.
Yeah. So these are what the unknowns are. And room for error, I think, Professor.
You always have to have room for error because nothing works perfectly.
Well, and how does the bucket strategy provide room for error? Frankly, I think what it does is the error is what happens in the stock markets, the ups and downs.
Right.
You cannot predict that. You know something's going to happen, but you have to. What you're doing is buying time, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the volatility risk. We're taking the volatility out of the equation, at least trying to, with giving time, conservative assumptions. Don't overestimate. Don't think that, if we're at the end of 2021 right now, the market was up 20% plus a year for the last 3 years. It's going to continue at 20% a year for the next 3 years. No, and my plan will work if I can earn 20% a year for the next 3 years. Going back to the .com bubble, people were saying, I take my safe money and put it in the QQQ. Because now we're in a new world that's never going to change. No. These 20+% years are going to continue forever ad nauseum. No, the world doesn't always give you wonderful rates of return like that.
And here's the problem when somebody presents a plan. It says, okay, look, here's the deal. We're going to give you a 60-40 mix of stocks and bonds. We're going to take, the stock market does 10% a year. We're only going to take 4 to 5, okay?
Right. That leaves you 5-6% for inflation.
Right. So here's the deal. You're going to turn out great, except the stock market must return 10% every single year, okay? That's how this plan is going to work. There's no room for error. If next year the stock market goes down by 20%, this thing isn't going to work.
Well, even
that's a bad plan. There's no room for error in that.
No, it has to do positive results every year. Well, the markets don't do positive results every year. And people who used that theory back in 2005, 6, 7, they got a rude awakening in 2008, 9 because the market or the average 60-40, 50-50 balanced portfolio mutual fund went down by, I think, like 25%. Mm-hmm. And if you're living off that income that's hopefully creating, you're selling in a down market. Yeah. Selling in a down market is not a good way to maintain wealth.
No, and speaking of down markets, I'm gonna move to the last one here as we're getting close to the end of the episode. The last episode you mentioned about the markets going down, and that's you need to provide.
And they do it.
They do it all the time. I mean, it's throughout history. It's never going to change.
It's one of the inevitables. We just don't know when.
Right. Well, so then the sixth lesson of this thing, sixth money lesson on this that I found was that keep in mind that nothing is free. Okay, the price of investing in the stock market is there are going to be losses. You're going to have downturns. There could be downturns that last 2-3 years. There could be periods of time, 10 years.
Yeah, it could be 2 years just to get to the bottom.
Right, and then another,
3, 4, 5 coming back, or like we saw in 2000 to 2010.
2 dips right there.
10. Yeah.
I mean, we saw one in the .com.
Right, 2000.
And then we saw 2008 again.
Yeah, that was in that 10-year spread right there.
Right, and this there was an advisor I saw interviewed somewhere who said that the price of watching stocks go down, if you look at it more, you should look at it more as a fee. He says, because when you watch markets go down, it feels more like a fine for doing something wrong than a fee for doing something good. If you look at market downturns as a fee, as the cost of being in the game, it can help people stay happen. Right. It can help people stay disciplined, I think, enough. It's not that you did anything wrong. It's just the price of admission for being in the market.
And having a strategy that anticipates the fact that at some point it's going to go down. The question is when.
Yes.
And having money on the side to take advantage of that downturn can only make you feel good about a downturn. Well, you know that the money that you have at risk has 10 plus years to go. You do not need that capital in the next decade. So if it goes down, it goes down, it goes up, we're doing fine. But when it goes down, identifying that down as an opportunity rather than a negative, that can change your psyche as well.
Well, it sure can. I mean, assuming you have the cash to buy in. But even if you don't, it's you really
know that it's not a big deal.
Right. So this ties in the whole room for error thing, which is that markets go down, but I've got my income. And that's what's important to me.
Markets going down only hurt you if you sell when you're down.
And if you sell when you're down, it's because you need the money.
Right. Or because you're afraid. And that's something we need to consider as well, because I've mentioned many times, I know people who just cannot accept negative numbers on their statements. And so by that fact, they are not investors in the market.
Well, because they're not willing to pay the price.
They're not. They've got enough money. They don't have to hit home runs. These little singles here all the way through life, and they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So why the old adage of why take risk when you don't have to?
Sure. Well, okay.
And then they're in a position they don't have to, and they don't want to. They don't want to see any negative numbers.
But here we go back to the risk versus volatility. Why accept volatility when you don't have to? The risk is I need the money, I'm going to pull it out. Right. Or my behavior is going to force me to pull it out. That's the risk.
That's the risk of the volatility.
Yeah, we should do another program on that sometime. I mean, when that light bulb went off, when we were talking about that number of months ago, I thought, wow, you know what? They say the stock market is risky. Well,
the stock market is a stock market. We know what it's going to do. It's going to go up and it's going to go down.
Right. The risk is you need the money when it's down. Exactly. And that's why...
Or you sell out when it's down. People talk about timing the market. When it's a market at a high, a market at a low. When you're timing the market, you have to be right twice.
Yeah.
Not just picking the top or the bottom. If you pick the top, then you have to pick the bottom to get back in.
Yeah.
I know people that picked a good time to get out of the market before a downturn, dip, 10, 15, 20% downturn. But then they didn't get back in until the market was back up to or past where they got out at.
That's
just a lot of work and a lot of agonizing, emotional drain work.
And for what? I mean,
they didn't get anything out of it.
No, you don't. I see these every so often. I get these emails that tell me what the stock market just did the last week. Well, the stock market went up because blah blah blah, and this number was this, and going forward we see. Honestly, none of these reports matter at all.
Not on that short-term area.
They shouldn't matter even if they make a prediction over the next 5 years. I don't care what your prediction is; it's probably going to be wrong.
And there'll be something, even if your prediction is right, and it's like you said, a 5-year prediction.
Yeah,
there's probably something in a year or two that's going to affect that prediction that you had no idea what was going to happen, and that changes. Oh, wait a minute! I need to clarify my prediction and change it because of some new information came in, Mr. Mason.
So, well, now there's a reference. Actually, that I think predates you and me.
I think he was on the air before us, yeah.
It was, or went off the air before you and me. So those are the 6 lessons. I ran across these, and I think it's important to keep in mind when you're dealing with money that there's a certain... I hate to use the word discipline, but it is true. There's a certain discipline that you need to follow. You need to understand where your goals are, but you also need to understand that your behavior can oftentimes be your own worst enemy. And if you remember these 6 lessons that I just threw out, and there are many more, but especially the part about staying wealthy is a lot harder than getting wealthy.
But you have to be able to get wealthy first before staying wealthy becomes an issue.
Well, and for people who've been trying to get wealthy for years and they just can't seem to do it, oftentimes, I'm not saying all the time, but oftentimes I think it's because of their own missteps.
Right. And, trying to keep up,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I've been through it too. I wanted to be like other people who had more money than me.
Yeah.
And so I bought things that I really couldn't afford so that I could be like them.
Yeah.
And that took away from my ability to ever be like them.
It is. It's funny. Wealth seems to be humans are status seekers. At least our society, we seem to be. We want to show. If we've made it big, we want to show that we've got the nice car or the nice home that we really probably don't need. It's just part of our human nature, and there's nothing wrong with that. You and I'm like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
we all have it to some degree.
We all have it to some degree. We we buy stuff we don't necessarily need, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is when that becomes the driving factor,
right? And it takes away from your ability to actually. And when we talk about becoming wealthy doesn't specify a specific number.
No, it's the difference between what you spend and what you...
There are people that are very wealthy that don't have millions of dollars. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And there are people that have millions of dollars that are broke.
Yes, so to speak. Broke, so to speak. I mean...
Yeah, they're a couple paychecks away from losing everything.
Exactly. You want to know more about this stuff? This is really kind of why we talk about things like the bucket strategy. And that has to do with a lot of these lessons that we've talked about here on this podcast. I mean, just understanding about keeping wealth and understanding things about having room for error. The plan, you do not have to, the stock market does not have to go up by 8% every single year for your plan to work.
Nope. And if it does require that, you're going to be in trouble.
You're going to be in big trouble. You're going to be disappointed at some point along the way. Talk to the folks at Lucia Capital Group, 800-644-1150, 800-644-1150. Also, find that Bucket Strategy Guide. Very popular. We'll be continuing to do this guide. We'll leave it up for a little while longer, but get one now. Get yours now. At luciacap.com, type in Bucket Strategy in the search bar in the upper right, and you can download it and read it. The PDF, that's not a quick read. Well, I guess it's a fun read. Let's put it that way. Can I say that? I was going to say it's a quick read, but it could be 30 pages. But you read the first 4 pages, you'll at least understand
you get the concept.
Yeah, absolutely, and dive in from that. Social Security guides there as well, estate planning guides at luciacap.com. Also, subscribe to this podcast. Please do that. We love watching those numbers go up. That's the number I get addicted to, watching the subscriptions go up. It's kind of like watching your...
I figure if you're inviting me back every week, then they must be going up.
Well, so far we've done okay. We're
so I don't pay attention to those numbers because You are.
This is episode 190, and we're
wow.
They said it wouldn't last, right? Here we are. Go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and make sure you subscribe to everything that we talk about, because this is valuable information. And as I've said before, if you have something you want us to talk about, let us know. Shoot Professor Plum an email. You can do so at luciacap.com. Professor, thank you so much.
Always welcome.
As always, I thank you for being the certified financial planner professional that you are and the accredited wealth management advisor that you are.
So smooth.
I told you, man. I got it down.
Yep.
We'll see you next week if I do. All right. For Professor Rick Plum, I'm your podcast host, Johnny Dean. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again next week.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. Different types of investments and/or investment strategies involve varying levels of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment or investment strategy will be profitable for a client's or prospective client's portfolio. Thus, investments may result in a loss of principal. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, are not guaranteed, and subject to potential federal and state law amendments. There is no guarantee that you will achieve the results discussed or illustrated. You should always seek counsel of the appropriate advisor prior to making any investment decision. All investments are subject to risk, including the loss of principal. This material was gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed. This material should not be considered a solicitation of an offer to sell or buy any specific security or offering. Investors should consult a financial professional to determine whether risks associated with an investment in the shares are compatible with their investment objectives. ETFs are subject to market fluctuation and the risks of their underlying investments. ETFs are subject to management fees and other expenses. Unlike mutual funds, ETF shares are bought and sold at market price, which may be higher or lower than their NAV and are not individually redeemed from the fund. Before investing, carefully consider mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, which contains this and other information, call your financial advisor. Read the prospectus carefully before investing. Earnings from a 529 college savings plan can grow tax-deferred and may be withdrawn free of federal taxes when used for qualified education expenses. Non-qualified withdrawals are subject to a 10% penalty tax. Roth IRA distributions in principal from a Roth IRA are tax-free. However, any earnings will be taxed at ordinary income rates, and a 10% penalty tax will apply if withdrawn prior to age 59.5 or within 5 years of the date the Roth IRA was established, whichever is longer. 401k benefits may be subject to change at your employer's, the governing pensions, or benefit organization's discretion. Rick Plum is a registered representative with, and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor and member FINRA SIPC. The investment professionals are affiliated with LPL Financial and are conducting business using the name Lucia Capital Group, a separate entity from LPL Financial. The people and companies mentioned in this podcast are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Lucia Capital Group.